So we're live,
Oh.
and this is just kicking it. Yet another episode of this series, and today was a day like no other so far in the World Cup. We had a fantastic comeback before. We called it the mother of all comebacks. But
I think this
time,
one pieces out.
this is the granddaddy of all comebacks so far, and we're talking about Belgium versus Japan. That game ended 3-2, although for a second it looked like it was heading for a 2-0 victory to the Japanese, but that didn't happen. Rodney Lahi was here in the newsroom and he was very excited about it. He actually called it from very early on when I was thinking that Japan were going to go through to meet Brazil in the next round of this competition. Rodney Lahi was saying no. What happened was some very inspired substitutions because the manager decided that he was going to bring on both Marouane Fellaini and Chadli, and those two guys ended up scoring. So very smart substitutions from the manager of the Belgian team, and also scoring was Jan Vertonghen. He scored one to make it 2-1 to Belgium, and then these two guys came and rounded off what was a very good comeback. An interesting stat that I saw online is that it's the first comeback win from 2-0 down in a knockout since 1970, when Germany FR beat England 3-2. Rodney has been, since Argentina left the World Cup, I see he's wearing his Argentine colours. I'm not too sure why, but today he's wearing his Argentine colours. But we're going to ask him to talk about Belgium because that's another team that he supports very strongly. You were saying from very early on, even though it was 2-0 in favour of the Japanese, that Belgium were going to come back.
Well, I didn't think that Belgium were going to go down 2-0 to begin with. Yeah, I'm a strong Belgium supporter as well, not as much as I would support Argentina, but I've seen over the last couple of years Belgium being a force to be reckoned with in terms of the star players, at least, who comprise the team. But in terms of results, they haven't really showed us what they could do because they have a lot of big names making up their team. But today, I honestly expected Belgium to roll over Japan. I posted it on Facebook, on my WhatsApp as well. I was expecting 5-0, 6-0, no respect for the Japanese team, because in the group stages they showed how disruptive they could be. Now, mind you, they haven't gotten that severe competition as yet, except maybe from England, but that was a game we can't really judge from because Belgium had a B-side. England also fielded their bench, but they came out victorious 1-0. Today though, I really thought that Belgium were going to get the better of Japan because Japan kind of squeezed through to this round to be quite fair. They won a group with Colombia, who also got through, but at the expense of other teams. It totally escapes me right now, but I know that there were other teams that were also fighting for a spot. Senegal got knocked out in the Japanese group. So I honestly thought today Belgium were going to click and they were going to roll over Japan. I was wrong, but they still showed the character that I see the Belgium side having, especially in the last 20 minutes or so. Now the entire game, if you all looked at the entire game, you would notice that Belgium created a lot of chances, but something happened in that dressing room at halftime on the Japanese side. Because Japan were playing something like how Russia started playing a few days ago. You could see that they were defending and waiting for that chance, and if the chance didn't come, they were going to try to push it to penalties if possible, or maybe to extra time to get that elusive goal. But it didn't work out that way. In the second half, they came out with this fighting spirit, and with all due respect to the Japanese, you can't categorize them in the same bracket as Iceland or Russia, because Iceland and Russia would defend with 10 men behind the ball. Japan may have done that, but they had something about them attacking. You can see they were fluid and they were trying to create their chances. The 2 goals that they scored were shocking. It was so well put together, and I think Belgium got rocked back. But as I said, in the last 15-20 minutes, Belgium just came together as a team, created those chances, and it just happened. Look, when Courtois collected the ball in the last minute, I said, look at this goal, what is goal? Because I expected, not that the goal was a given, it was a very well worked goal, but I expected a team like Belgium with Courtois on the ball, that is the opportunity to counter-attack in the last minute of the game. He rolled it out for De Bruyne. De Bruyne just created that chance where you have 4 Belgian players surging forward. You have about 6 defenders, but the attack was so fluid that there was little that could be done. It was up to Belgium to not score as opposed to Japan defending.
What's important to note as well is that if you looked at that very last goal, as Rodney was saying, it was well worked. It wasn't a wow goal. It's nothing that would have your jaw drop to the ground, but it was well orchestrated. What must be noted is because Chadli was so fresh, he was brought on in the second half. Because he was so fresh, you saw the difference between Chadli's run as well as Lukaku. Lukaku did well to dummy the ball and jump over it. But if you look at Chadli's run all the way up the pitch, you see the difference between him and his fresh legs and the rest of the Japanese team. But Sarah, where do you think it went wrong for Japan? They did come out very strongly, or do you think they over-attacked?
I think at the end of the day, once you have a determined team, a team that's determined to go after the goals, that sort of inspiration is difficult to defend against because like Rodney said, it's so easy going 2 goals down so quickly because they came literally one after the next. It's so easy to start to panic at that point and to lose hope because I think there was less than half an hour in the game to go at that point in time. But cool head from the coach in terms of bringing on his substitutes. And I think you said that last goal wasn't jaw-dropping. I think it was because that was the definition of perfect team play.
Yep.
The keeper collected the ball off the corner and released his players one time. And that sort of well-orchestrated play, getting the team on the break in the very last minute under that sort of pressure, to me is a thing of beauty. And that's a team working together to get the win.
It is. And I think what Rai was saying before we even went
it wasn't a fancy finish or anything.
The finish wasn't as fancy, but
it wasn't fancy.
The orchestration, as Rai said, was so perfect. And we have to really applaud how that came about because it is the final minute of a game, an hour and a half running up and down, apart from the fresh legs of Chadli and Fellaini as well, who came on as a sub. But you're in the last minute of this game, you could have pushed for extra time, which you decided, well, okay, listen, it's the last minute, we have this opportunity. As soon as I saw the Japanese corner going to be taken, I was like, okay, if it were me, I'm not a sportsman, but if it were me, the thing is, the tactical part of it would be, it's a Japanese corner. Let's see if we could prevent anything from scoring one, but let's see if we could counter-attack, and that is where they got it right. And not only that, teamwork, as Sarah said, because it wasn't just about someone collecting the ball and trying to score. De Bruyne could have surged forward and he could have tried to score. He didn't. He waited. He's the cog of the middle, and that is what defines a great team as well. He's the playmaker in that middle of the park. He tried to find a pass because he could have passed left or right because there was Chadli, there was Lukaku, but there was also on the right hand side. He could have passed it there. I forgot who he passed it to cross the ball. But he did that. He stopped. You'll see he paused, looked for the perfect pass, and he did that. And it happened. Everybody had their role. Courtois had his role, the goalkeeper, De Bruyne, the guy who crossed the ball. Lukaku as well with the dummy. I think that's the best thing he did for the entire game. It is. It was the best thing he did for the entire game, that dummy.
Because no offense to him, but leaving the ball alone was really the best thing that he did.
It was. All due respect.
But this is I think what separates world-class teams from teams that play around the world. Japan are a good team. They have a lot of good players. But you see, when you get into 90 minutes of football, but you can still have the mental capacity to know what to do in a situation like that, which is leave the ball alone, and you have
as
Chadli,
opposed to going for glory,
and you have Chadli behind you wide open, because Lukaku did have a defender literally on him, and Chadli was wide open. To have that mental capacity to know, look, there's someone behind me, and he has a better chance at this than I do. That is what defines a world-class team, and not just a world-class team, but a world-class player in Romelu Lukaku. Chadli will get the glory as the man who scored that goal, but I think it really comes down to the vision of Courtois, first of all, the goalkeeper, for getting that ball up the field as quickly as he did, and then the mental capacity and the experience of a man like Lukaku to leave that ball alone. The other game that took place today was Brazil versus Mexico. Now, Brazil got past them 2-0, which means that they will be meeting Belgium in the next round of this competition. That game, it was not the prettiest game of football you'll ever see, but you have to feel sorry for Guillermo Ochoa, the Mexican goalkeeper. He had 8 saves in that game, but somehow or the other, he still ended up letting 2 past him. And if you remember the goals, it was really nothing that he could have done. There were crosses that came along the ground from wide, and even though he tried to get to the ball, he still had to make sure that he had his positions covered, and in doing so, let a couple slip by. So that game ended 2-0. Both teams, they shared possession. Brazil, though, had the majority of shots on goal. They had something like 10 shots on target. They had maybe 20-something odd in total. So that would be shots that were blocked, shots that went wide, shots that went over the bar, as well as the on-target attempts. So out of those 10, 8 were saved, but it's football. If you don't score and your goalie lets 2 pass, then there's no way you're going to come back from that. Neymar and Firmino scoring in the 51st and 88th minutes respectively. And there was some more theatrics from Neymar again.
He's very down to earth.
He's very down to earth. He seems to be a guy who knows how to get down to the ground and meet the people, and
Yeah, he should be a politician.
But I saw on Facebook very, very shortly after his theatrics that he was awarded some acting accolades.
Yeah.
So he continues to have his theatrics all the way through this World Cup. To be fair to him, someone did step on his foot, but it's the kind of step on a foot that you'll probably just say ouch for rather than roll around for 5 minutes and keep the game
Not
back.
just roll around, literally. I was
Screaming
comparing
in
it
agony.
So he
to
was making
fish
a
out
baby or
of
something.
water, fish out of water behavior.
Yeah.
I mean,
It takes away from.
I'm not sure. I've not played any World Cup, so I don't know the type of atmosphere. You know, your blood is pumping in a game. I don't know exactly how much pain he was in, but it just seemed
It seemed
a
over
bit
the top.
excessive.
It seemed over
It
the top.
did seem so,
A
but we
bit
can't judge. We've
excessive.
never played professional football and had somebody step on our foot. So.
Listen, I kicked a table accidentally over the weekend, and my reaction was, ouch, that hurts. And then I walked off. Now, had that been Neymar, he probably would have rolled around, asked the table why he kicked him, even though he kicked the table, look at the referee hoping that the table was going to get a red card, and then when he realized that wasn't working out, would get up and walk off. But enough said about that. Brazil did eventually play a good game of football. What was important is that they got the attempts on target. So many times in this World Cup, we've seen teams have shots, 20-something shots, but 5 of them being, or 4 of them being on target. And that made a difference in their respective matchups, whether they drew or ended up losing. So now this means that Brazil and Belgium will have to meet on the 6th, which is Friday. First of all, Sarah, looking at how well the Brazilian team has played, I still don't think we've seen 100% from Brazil.
Definitely
But
not.
where do you see both of these teams heading into this game? Do you favor a Belgian win? Do you favor a Brazilian win? Or do you think that this game will end up going down to penalties?
Well, the thing is, I think the Belgium we saw today was visibly troubled at times by Japan, and I was actually joking ahead of the game, you know, what if Brazil plays Japan in the quarterfinal? And that actually almost happened. But they will need to do some work in terms of the defensive part of it, because I remember at times when the Japanese were moving forward, Rodney was panicking, oh my god, another goal gonna
And it
score.
scored.
No, aside from those two, he was certain that another Japanese goal was going to be scored, because
Yeah.
obviously the defense was being challenged. Now, in a Brazilian setup featuring, regardless of all his antics, Neymar is a good player. Roberto Firmino, to me, hasn't really been given much of an opportunity, but if he does get that opportunity, he will try to take advantage of it to stamp his mark on the team and, you know, justify a starting spot in particular. Brazil is an attacking team, so they will need to pull together in terms of what they need to do defensively, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a game of defense on the day. What do you think?
No. Well, just to track back a little bit, Belgium versus Brazil. Belgium's advantage is more quality on paper. Brazil has quality, but they not across the field. Brazil has quality attacking. In the middle, they're okay. Who's their midfield core right now? Not Fernandinho. There's Paulinho. He's in the middle. Defense-wise, they're not bad as well. Pretty good defenders. Marquinhos is, well, he got a...
Well, they were
a little sweat
missing
today.
Marcelo today as well.
Right, Marcelo wasn't in. Felipe Luis came in for him.
Right.
So they are good. But man for man, Belgium is way better than Brazil.
What must be noted as well, as Rodney just mentioned, the quality of players. Brazil will be missing the services of Casemiro.
He got 2
He
yellows.
got a second yellow card today. So he had a yellow card today, but he already had one going into this match, which means that he will be missing in action when they do play Belgium. And while you may not look at the name Casemiro and think, oh my gosh, that's such a big loss, he's
It
still
is.
an important player because he may not have the name of Neymar or he may not have the name of Firmino, but he's still an important player to the squad. So given what Rodney is saying and given the fact that this is one of the best players on the field in terms of not just attacking but being able to hold the ball, with him missing, it'll be interesting to see who the manager brings in to fill that space. Who do you think might be able to fill that space?
Casemiro's position right now is where?
He's in the middle of the ball.
Well, that's where Fernandinho would come in.
Yeah.
But Fernandinho is more of a defensive player, but that's okay because you still have Paulinho. You see the Brazilian style of play when it comes to defense would be buccaneering defenders on the wings, both left and right. Today we didn't have that. Filipe Luis isn't a Marcelo. So I think Marcelo will come back in. To answer that question, I think that Fernandinho would come into the centre of the park. But if Belgium clicks on the day, we may be in for a surprise. But Brazil has that habit of winning, which plays such a big role in the World Cup. They have players who have World Cup experience too. Belgium need to really find their rhythm early as opposed to waiting for it in the last 20 minutes against Japan.
And the thing I've realized about this World Cup too is that a team could perform less than admirable on one day. The next match they show up and they give a real challenge. For example, Argentina in the knockout round took that game all the way to the very end before they were eliminated. And we didn't see any of that when they were playing Croatia, for example. So this could be an instance where Belgium was less than impressive today and turned out when it matters.
What do you have to remember too, in these type of tournaments, your opponent is never who you are accustomed to. These guys play football around the world, yes, but when you come up against, let's take today's example, Japan, the Belgian players will not be very familiar with the Japanese players, save and except maybe for Kagawa.
Kagawa, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And these are not players that generally they would not be familiar with. You look at the Brazil-Mexico game, yes, there are a few star players on the Mexican team, but then there are some other players who play in Mexico, who play in the USA, that you're not very familiar with. And then you take into account as well, you're playing in unfamiliar territory, you're playing in Russia. There are a few players in the tournament that have played in Russia or are playing in Russia, but a lot of these guys aren't. It's a different temperature that you're playing in. From what I understand, sometimes the temperature gets so ridiculously high, and then sometimes it's cool and almost cold. So
those conditions are actually similar to what was experienced in Brazil in 2014. Because it was played across, Brazil is a large country. So I remember there was an instance where a lot of the German players, approximately 4 or 5 players, got sick because of the constant temperature changes that was attributed to Hummels, for example. He got the flu really bad. He missed a couple games because of it, because they said they were moving from scorching temperatures to colder temperatures at the
distance
same time.
as well, because one of the stadium.
Well, Russia is a large country as well.
Yeah, and distance plays a big role because one of the stadium is somewhere in the middle of the Amazon, according to one report, and it's absolutely it's by the wayside now. It was played in the World Cup, and that's it because nobody else is going there for any big games. So that's that.
So you take all of this into consideration, and the fact that these are still human beings.
Yes.
They're not superheroes, they're not superhuman. Some of them may seem so on the field, but they are still human beings vulnerable to mental and physical exhaustion. So if you see a team today that plays poorly, it may be because of all these factors coming together, and then they get a nice rest, a decent training session in, and their very next match they're playing a totally different game. All of these things happen. So it'll be very interesting to see that on Friday what Brazilian team goes out and what Belgian team shows up.
Well, not only that, today's Belgium team was different to the group stages. If you guys realize, Kompany came back. Kompany is a big presence. He's the team captain. Well, today Hazard was the captain, but Kompany is the long-term captain. He's always out with injury, but when he's there, things happen differently. The defense is different. Now, I was saying this even before the World Cup. Kompany didn't start, but when he does, it could be a good thing and a bad thing. Because at the back, you have, Belgium played with 4 at the back. So you had the centre-backs as Vertonghen and Alderweireld. They play together in Tottenham.
Yes, they do.
When Kompany comes in now, they play with 3 centre-backs as opposed to 4 at the back. So you have 3 centre-backs with Kompany in the middle. You have Vertonghen and Alderweireld on his side, which changes up the setup a little bit. And it kind of showed today because Kompany is your last centre-back, and he was in the first half almost heading in not even heading, acrobatically hitting a goal in. It almost went in. If you remember, it was a cross. Exactly. So the setup of the team kind of change, which of course may affect the rhythm of the team. But hopefully in the next game, if they keep that starting 11 or at least that defensive back line, things might be different.
Which is
Brazil.
where,
I won't be surprised.
which is where you have these training sessions that they will be taking part in with Company back in the mix. If they can train well with him and he stays fit and doesn't get injured again, if he stays fit and they train with him and gel together properly in training, you can see an even better display from the Belgians. You mentioned Company and being injured, but being such a force when he's there. He reminds me, and I don't want anyone to take offense from this. If you do, I apologize. But
I'm offended.
But I feel as though he has a Shannon Gabriel sort of feel in terms of, you see, people are laughing already, but when Shannon Gabriel gets injured, which is regularly, he has to be out for extended periods of time. But when he is there, when he's there, just Rodney hasn't been watching a lot of West Indies cricket recently since Chandler Paul left the scene. I think he stopped watching cricket. Anyway, when Shannon Gabriel is missing from the West Indies team, it's felt. But when Shannon Gabriel is there and he's fit, but he's properly fit, 100% fit, he can make a big impact. And it's the same thing with
13
Company.
or 14 wickets in the last test.
That's my point. So, Company has this sort of an impact. So if he can stay fit, not get injured, and try to keep his body in tip-top shape for that Brazil game, Brazil could end up on the
quality is one thing, and Company is world class, as is the entire Belgium team or most of it. But the personality of Company, he actually,
he's very commanding.
He commands that back line, as I said, and it may not have worked efficiently today. It would have worked at a point, but it may not have worked efficiently today. And I admire him so much because he is a centre back. Yet you find him in the box, heading in goals, threatening the opposition goal, and he does that with such aplomb. It's so admirable.
And what he does many times, if you get a good look at the pitch, many times when Belgium are attacking, or even his club when they're attacking, he finds himself almost in the midfield, in a position where he can point, or he can shout at his attackers to say, well, look, you're out of position, you are offside, get back. He's in a position where he can orchestrate properly, and I think that is what made the difference coming down in the last few minutes of this game, where they got those goals, Fellaini in 74th minute and Chadley in 90 plus 4 minutes. Sarah, as we move on, we have matches on tomorrow. The Swedes, the Swiss, the Colombians and the English, all in action.
Right. Well, England, they've had a nice long rest, mostly because, of course, in their final game against Belgium, they chose to rest the majority of their starters. So, you know, Harry Kane and company will be fully ready.
Not company. And company
with a C, right, they'll be ready to go tomorrow. They are taking on Colombia in the second match of the day. Now, the stats according to how it's expected to turn out, these are the predictions. There's a 25% chance of Colombia winning, 46% chance for England to win, and a 29% chance of a draw. Draw, of course, will mean extra time and possibly penalties.
10% chance of precipitation.
Yes. The first game on the agenda is Sweden versus Switzerland. A 32% chance of Sweden winning, 36% chance of Switzerland winning, and a 32% chance of a draw. So that match is expected to be tight.
Yeah.
We don't know how it's going to turn out because we thought today was going to be a blowout with Belgium, and clearly that was not the case.
I was about to say that these stats on paper, physical paper by the way,
we could just
you can literally just fling it and throw it into the nearest dustbin.
Well, StatsSky held true for today,
but it didn't seem so.
Not with Belgium.
Everybody expected the Belgians to beat the Japanese
Belgium
convincingly.
scored half the number of goals I thought they would have scored, and it was too close. But apart from that, Mexico has never beat Germany in a World Cup game before. They beat them 1-0 this time around. They've never scored against Brazil in 5 meetings before in the World Cup. They've gotten 13 goals along the way. They have never scored against Brazil. So I was like, okay, well, they defied the odds and they rewrote the history books for the Germany game. So I expect them to do the same for Brazil. I expected a 1-1 or a 2-1 draw. It didn't happen. So history kind of, stats and history and all of that, it kind of held true for that.
That's the thing about this World Cup though. Stats only hold through for like 1 game out of 10. So, it'll be very interesting to see which of the next 10 games that the stats hold true for. Me personally, I kind of agree with the Switzerland Sweden.
That has draw written all over.
That one, I think it might end up being a bit of a boring game, but I really hope that that's not the case, because that Spain game where they got knocked out of the tournament, jeez, that was such a boring game of football.
He's a
I
Spain
think the
fan.
I support
Croatia-Denmark
Spain.
game, even they had the 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. After that, it was basically a patchy game.
And then the
Not
last
a
5
patchy,
minutes.
a patchy game. They had chances. Yes.
So, as Sarah was saying, we have seen some patchy football, and especially in the knockout games, Rodney Lahi. Especially in these knockout games, I think teams are kind of cagey, because if you fall behind early on, that could mean you getting knocked out, because it's not a situation where, alright, if we mess up a little bit, we draw, we still get a point. Now you have to pack your bags and go home if you mess up early
No
on.
draws allowed.
So,
Commando mode.
commando mode. So I kind of agree with that Sweden-Switzerland prediction that it might be a cagey, maybe 2-goal game, and then it goes on to extra time. Maybe that might be the case. The England game, it's almost 50% going the way of England winning. That I tend to kind of disagree with. I'm not saying that England won't win. I think there is still a chance that they would come out on top, but I don't think it's
it may
going
be
to
a
be.
tougher game than people might
Yeah,
expect
it's not
it
going
to
to be that clear cut.
Even though I think James Rodriguez is out injured now, so they will be without his services. But how much has he really done so far for this particular?
He has done actually.
He has done a lot.
First, the
It's not on paper
Yeah.
where you're gonna see his name every single time you
You
look
see-
at the scorecard.
You see, that's how it works, right? Expectations were very low for James Rodriguez last time around. He was relatively unknown, and he scored 2 of the best goals in the World Cup, including the best goal, voted as the best goal. He
Yeah.
chested, turned, and shot and scored. Now, James Rodriguez is a world-class player, but a lot has happened in 4 years. He went to Real Madrid. He was on the sidelines. He's at Bayern now. But the thing is, expectation is a hell of a thing. Look at Ronaldo, look at Messi, look at all of the big players. So, James Rodriguez did not start in
Yes,
the
he
second group game. He came on in the last group game as a starter, and he actually gave the assist for one of the goals.
So this is
So-
what I'm saying. It may not be on paper,
Right. He hasn't had much of an
But he
opportunity.
does have, I
Yeah.
think he will come to the game when it matters.
but apart from having that assist, he has made a lot of key passes. It may not have ended up being a goal, but it would have been passes that opened up the game, passes that created an opportunity, and the opportunity may not have been taken. And that's the funny thing about football. You can have a fantastic pass, and if it doesn't end up in the back of the net because the striker missed it, or he tripped on his laces, or he fell because he's Neymar, then you're not going to be seen as doing anything great in the game.
Yeah.
But if you look at it with a technical eye, or you really sit down and look at the game in its entirety, yeah, James has had a few good opportunities and has made a few good assists, not just the actual assist with the goal, but he has helped them with their game and opening up. So
Well,
He
it,
was
it,
good at
it was
saying.
only that one game he really had the opportunity because he started
Yeah.
off the World Cup, of course, carrying a minor injury, so they didn't want to risk him too early on in the tournament and have him ruled out. But he's out anyway.
I think a lot of people underestimate or seem to turn a blind eye to the South American countries. Apart
Yes.
from Messi, apart from Argentina, and you would see Messi, that's the first thing. Uruguay, look at what Forlan was a few years ago.
Yes.
He's a big player. Look at Uruguay now, Suarez, Cavani. Cavani's a world-class player. Look at the goal he scored just a few days ago.
Well, of course, Diego Godin.
Right.
Godin.
So
He's
that's,
been,
well,
he's
that's
been
a
singled
talk.
out as one of the best defenders.
Yeah,
so
that,
far.
that's a talk for a totally different because that Uruguay defense is it. Now we have Colombia, a guy who couldn't play in the last World Cup, Falcao.
Yes.
He
he's
is
back.
a big deal. He may not have done too well in his clubs. They were tossing him from club to club, but I'm not. Where is he now?
He's in
Falcao.
France.
He's in France now. And the thing is, Falcao is a world-class player. He's a game changer. So you have Falcao, you have James Rodriguez, you have Quintero, you have this guy who was at
Cuadrado.
Chelsea, Cuadrado. He was at Chelsea. He's no longer there, but he is a big player as well. Colombia have a really good side. I would like to see Colombia win, but I would like to see England win. I'm kind of torn because I'm a big Premier League fan.
Premier League fan, yeah.
The English team is a really good team. They've always had players, Lampard, Gerrard over the years. They've never kind of brought the bacon home over the last few World Cups. But I would really like to see England succeed. But I want to see Colombia win as well. So
You see,
I don't know. I really don't know.
And I honestly don't think it's going to be as simple as one is going to win, the other is going to lose. I think it may be so two things could happen. It's either one team totally blows the other away, or it's going to go straight down to penalties. And I'm not too sure which one I think is going to happen, because it's such a difficult game to choose an outcome. If this was one game I had to predict to save my life, I would probably die, because I can't predict an outcome at all. I'm honestly very sorry. I wish I could say it here on camera and come back tomorrow and say, hey, look, I said so and so was going to happen, and it did, but I can't do
We
it.
can't predict any of these.
I think it's some brilliant moments of brilliance going to dictate these games.
And as well, mental stamina.
Yes.
The ability to be playing 120 minutes of football, if it goes on to extra time, of course, playing upwards of 2 hours of football, and still having the ability up here to, even though your body is saying, no, I can't do this, man, you've been running for 2 hours, you need to stop, we need to get food, you still have to have the ability up here to outwit your opponent, which is what happened today with Belgium. And having fresh legs is one thing, but of course the vision, as I said, of Courtois, he has such experience playing for a top club, and that showed in what he did by getting that ball out.
De Bruyne as well, right?
De Bruyne as well. So I think it's going to come down to that, and it's not going to be, well, you know, Harry Kane plays for a big club in England, this one plays for a big club in England.
I don't think England has actually really been challenged yet for this World Cup, because the one game that would have been a challenge was the game that they fielded their benches for. So I think this will be their first real challenge. They haven't been against a team that would give them that sort of hardcore opposition yet. And this could be Colombia.
It could be, and they have big names on paper. The entire England team is quality. That is not what we're disputing. What we're disputing is if that quality could click.
Yes.
As was the case for Belgium many years. When I saw Belgium's quality, I was like, wow, but they didn't click. And unfortunately, they met Argentina in the last World Cup and they lost. I was so glad about that. But the point is, they didn't click as they should with those big names. The same thing is happening with France. And a lot of people are talking about France. I don't see France winning the World Cup.
Well, I remember I said before this World Cup even started, looking at France on paper, they were a strong squad.
They were the biggest
but
side.
seeing them play, they've won their games, but Antoine Griezmann, who is supposed to be one of their prime finishers, one of the key figures, he's had 2 goals, but they were both penalties that he stepped up to take. Now I know there's pressure in itself in taking a penalty, but we haven't seen him, you know, destroying defenses and scoring goals out of play, and I think that's a serious sign.
Not only that.
And they're coming up against 2 in the quarterfinals.
France are playing Uruguay.
Exactly.
So
and Uruguay has Edinson
defense.
Cavani, who is in form.
But not only that, right? We're straying a little bit, but not only that with regard to France. But France is also very leaky in terms of conceding goals. They conceded against Australia, against Argentina. Now again, Argentina didn't have the best side. They're my team. I love Argentina.
Argentina gave them a scare in the final minutes.
I expected, I wanted Argentina to really do something magical on the day. But on paper, looking at Argentina, looking at France, France was supposed to win that game comfortably. I'm glad they didn't, but I really thought that they would. And again, defenses win competitions. Defenses plus good attack win competitions. All the World Cup winners of the last 2 or 3 decades have conceded less than 4 goals. France has already crossed that. So I'm going to make a bold prediction, and I think that winner of the Belgium-Brazil game is going on to win the World Cup.
I actually have to agree with you, because I've been looking at clean sheets in this tournament, and both teams have done well so far. Both their goalkeepers have had pretty good games, which is why I was a bit sad to see Mexico have to leave, because their goalkeeper Ochoa was in such fine form.
Not only in this World Cup,
Not only in this
World
World
Cup
Cup.
as well.
It was almost like that World Cup where Trinidad and Tobago went to the World Cup and Shaka Hislop came out of nowhere. Big up Shaka. And did wonders for this tiny nation of ours. So yeah, I have to agree with Rodney and Cyril. I think the winner of that Brazil-Belgium game will have probably one hand on that World Cup trophy already. Just to end off, I wanted to end off by saying that England have for a long time been unable to bring home the bacon, as Rodney said. They've had fantastic squads. They have men like you've had the Gerrards, you've had the Lampards, the John Terrys, you've had David Beckhams, you've had a lot of fantastic players. Michael Owen, Alan Shearer. The list goes on, and that's to tell you how far back you can go to Bobby Moore, and that was the World Cup winning team, right? And that was back in what? The 70s, the 60s. There we go. So since 66, all the way forward now to 2018, England have had quality squads who have failed to go on to really get to the final and grasp a final by the scruff of its neck and go on and win the trophy. It's not like they haven't had talent. They've had talent for a very long time. That's what the Premier League has done for them. Not just the Premier League, but the English League 1 and 2 and 3 and the Championship. They've been bringing up players that can boss the world, but haven't been able to. So this World Cup, I think if England doesn't go on to win, it's something that's going to haunt them for 20, 30 more years to come. I think this is their best chance at winning a World Cup ever since that 66 World Cup.
Well, a lot of things have changed for England since going into World Cups. They've always had issues, because in 2006, if you would remember, David Beckham was dropped, and there was Theo Walcott. He's no longer on the side anymore,
No.
but he was on the fringes. There was another guy who was also on the fringes, and David Beckham was the England winger, the free kick taker, everything for England in that regard.
Made an Indian movie out of it, everything.
Exactly. And the thing is, they dropped him because his powers were waning. And it happened in such a way that England were in transition in 2006. In 2010, they were kind of unlucky. Remember that Frank Lampard bullet? That was in 2010, I believe.
Look at how far we've advanced with VAR now. If VAR
Exactly.
was there, it would have been a
Things would
totally
have been
different
very,
World
very
Cup.
different. Again, they were a team not wholly structured. Midfield, yes. In terms of strikers, they didn't have much back then in 2010. 2014, they were okay as well, defense-wise and midfield-wise. But again, they weren't as cohesive as they should be. This time, on paper, there is no below-par player in England's team. Again, the question arises, would they click? That is the real question.
Well, I think I've noticed there's a group of Tottenham Hotspurs players, and they seem to get along really well with the other players. I mean, there's Eric Dyer, there's Harry Kane, there's, help me out, somebody else, Dele Alli. And then they seem to get along well with the other players who are not from Spurs, for example, the Jesse Lingard,
the Vardy even.
Exactly.
Vardy, yeah.
So I think in terms of chemistry, it's there. But like I said, I don't think England has really been challenged at something that would test their mettle on the pitch, test their patience in particular.
We haven't
because
seen
they've
them.
had some easy wins. Let's be real. They've had
Yeah, we
easy
haven't
wins where
seen
they
them
score
been
goals and they didn't have to
forced.
worry about it. Exactly.
They haven't been forced into victory yet. So, and trust me, I think that is what's going to happen in this Colombia game. Quickly, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up with some predictions. Sweden, Switzerland. That's 10 a.m. Rodney, Sweden, Switzerland.
Sweden, Switzerland, I think would be 1-1 or 0-0, but I'm going with 1-0. Switzerland would pip Sweden.
I think 2-1 in normal time to Switzerland.
Okay, I don't want to predict a scoreline. I just think it's going to be a close but uneventful game with a very narrow margin of win, a 1-goal difference. So it could be 1-0 or maybe like a 2-1. But
I think Shaqiri
I don't
is
think
going to win
2-1 because then that would mean more goals, which would mean a little more action. I think it's going to be similar to Croatia-Denmark, where there was not much action going on during the game itself.
Sweden-Switzerland is a game where they are so familiar with each other. They're two European teams.
They're going to
and
cancel
they're
out.
going to have like 7-8 gentlemen behind the ball at every single time. So Shaqiri, Xhaka, Lichtsteiner, those guys are going to try to penetrate. Maybe, because Shaqiri is a world-class player, he conjures up goals from nothing. But it's going to be pretty difficult to have a high-scoring game because they're going to have so much defense and trying to hit on the counter.
But I
To
think
wait for that
Switzerland,
opportunity.
not
Both
Switzerland, Sweden
teams.
is coming off an
They
emphatic win in the
Yeah.
group stages. That 3-0
3-0
against Mexico was a big deal.
Yeah.
For them at least.
But I don't see Switzerland having consistency in that regard.
Right, so I think it's going to be a little more uneventful, but a close margin win as well.
I still think 2-1 to Switzerland, and staying with what Sarah is saying, an uneventful game for the most part. Yes, they're going to be these 3 goals in my opinion, but I think it's going to come down to some sheer brilliance late on in that game. Colombia, England.
Colombia, England, as I said, I want Colombia to win. I think England is going to cross the line first. 2-1.
2-1 to England.
I
In
think
regular time.
I think 2-1 as well. I think England are going to get their first challenge, but I think If they do fail, it will be horrible on their part because they have momentum, even if they haven't been challenged yet. But I think Colombia is going to provide their first real challenge in this World Cup.
They will. So you think England is going to win?
I think England
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
going to win, and they're going to have to fight for that win. Just like the game that Uruguay played, where they had to scrape and fight for that win that they had. I mean, it was almost level on full time, and they managed to scrape past the post. I think it's going to be similar.
In case you all are hearing the shaking of
And it'll be-
blinds and
he
stuff
wants to be
here.
in our
That's
video.
when Bean
And it'll-
drinks
and it'll
milk and
be-
eats pepper.
And Elbeem wants to be in our video, but we didn't invite him today, so he's going to try and sneak in now. Just before he does that, I think it's going to be 2-1 to England as well, after some extra time.
Imagine if
Regular
all
time.
wrong,
I think it's going to be extra time.
and that sort of unexpected game like we got.
Well, you
today.
see, that's a
That's good.
possibility
Yeah.
as well, because this World Cup has thrown us many upsets and things that we just weren't expecting. So maybe, who knows, Colombia may upset England, but as of now, I'll stick to 2-1 to England. But I think Colombia are going to give them such a fight that it'll take an extra time goal to separate them.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see, and tomorrow we'll have another recap of all that happened. But for now, from Sarah Chandu, Rodney Lahi, aka Mr. Belgium, and myself,
For now.
Rayi Rikomas, that's it for just kicking it. I have to get up to the camera here just to say goodbye and end off this video.